And so all of that takes a role. I've had people who prioritize their health
Hmm.
and have gotten to a place where they're like, my job is not conducive to a healthy stress level, and they've quit their jobs. And I don't promote that, but it is really like it's a happy moment for me to see people really putting their health first.
All right, Brooke Evans. I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you for joining us on Show You the Business. So we actually met through BNI. My husband's in your BNI chapter, and for anybody who doesn't know what BNI is, it's a referral networking group. So it's a wonderful group. What do you think about your group?
I'm relatively new, but I like it a lot so far. I actually was introduced to BNI a long time ago because my dad was in BNI for my entire life,
Oh, okay.
um, in the chapter that I'm actually in now. And so it was per his recommendation that he actually said I should join. So I've known a lot of the people in there for a very long time.
Gotcha. So you're no stranger to it. So what's your category, or what do you do in general?
So I'm a dietitian, so I fit in like the health and wellness category of BNI. And there are some other health and wellness people in there, but obviously I'm the only one who is allowed to do nutrition in that.
Awesome, awesome. So you said dietitian. What do dietitians do?
So dietitians are basically like the legal practitioner for individuals who need to learn how to eat. So it could be anything from like weight loss. I see a lot of weight loss clients, but everything else, including like IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease, like thyroid disease. I've had a couple of cancer patients come in because when you're undergoing treatment, nutrition becomes a concern.
Mm.
Pretty much we teach anybody how to eat depending on their goals and what complications they may have. That's kind of where we angle it.
Gotcha. Now you said IBD and IB something. What does that mean? What's those acronyms stand for?
IBD is inflammatory bowel disease, and
Oh,
IBS is inflammatory bowel syndrome, which are actually different,
gotcha.
and therefore have a little bit of different protocols.
Yeah, understood. And it's funny that you say that you teach people how to eat, because that's like one of those things that you get to do when you're born that nobody really teaches you, right? It's just like
Right, right. And that's the thing. I always say I teach people how to eat. I don't tell people how to eat because there is
ah,
a difference. I want them to
yes,
learn and learn the reasons why we're doing these things.
understood. Understood. So what's the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
So a nutritionist pretty much can be anybody off the street. You don't have to have any kind of formal education to call yourself a nutritionist. So this could be anything from like the influencers you see on the internet,
Mhm.
the people at your gym who maybe they did take some education. They took like a 5-hour class online. Anybody can say they're a nutritionist. But to be a dietitian, you have to have formal education, your undergraduate degree, 1,200 hours of unpaid internship, and then you have to pass your state boards and maintain them.
Wow.
And then actually starting this upcoming year, in order to be a dietitian, you have to have your master's. So I got my master's ahead of the game because I was like, coming up, all these new people are going to have it anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah, so there's a lot more education involved. And just like you expect your doctor to stay up on continuing education, we have to do the same.
gotcha, gotcha. And RD, what does that stand for?
Registered dietitian.
Registered dietitian. Okay, so who might want to see a registered dietitian?
So pretty much anybody can.
Mhm.
I personally accept insurance at my practice, and for most people, it's covered under preventative care.
Yeah,
So you can get a certain number of hours, depending on your insurance. You'll get a certain number of hours, or certain insurances, it's unlimited. And you can come in and learn about food no matter what you have. Now,
gotcha.
other people who might be interested might be individuals who are looking to get pregnant or have recently become pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Individuals who maybe you're caring for someone who's elderly and they are struggling with their nutrition. So
Yeah,
you need to learn a little bit more on how to care for them best. New parents often have struggles with, feeding their kids and just knowing that they're doing the right things.
right.
But then anybody who has a disease state like diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, anything like that, there are different nutrition concerns for those individuals.
Hmm. Wow.
That's actually where making sure you see a registered dietitian is important because, those people who haven't necessarily got the education that they need legally should not see anyone with a like diabetes, heart disease. Like if you have a condition that needs to be treated, you should not be seeing somebody who is not licensed as a dietitian.
Wow, I did not know that. What made you want to be a dietitian? What made you get into this game?
So growing up, I was pre-med all the way. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Everything was great. I was, in college pre-med, applying for med schools. And from the time I was very young, like 13, I started getting migraines
Mm,
and they were progressively getting worse and worse. And I saw every doctor under the sun, neurologists, regular doctors, like went for CAT scans, all the things, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And I got put on a host of medications,
mm,
gained a lot of weight. And at that point, I was like, I'm on all these meds and I'm still getting migraines. Like something's wrong.
right.
So I like dipped my toe into the fitness field
Mm,
and fell in love with it. Became a personal trainer just because I wanted the knowledge. Like I just
mm,
took those classes, those courses, everything by myself because I was like, I'll just know it for me. And as soon as I started learning more about like the allergens,
mm.
I found out that I'm actually allergic to dairy.
Okay.
So all of my migraines for 7 years, almost 5 days a week, were actually rooted in the fact that I just kept eating dairy and nobody along the way asked me any questions. Nobody
Mm,
said, what do you eat? What do you do? Like maybe this is stemming from something else.
right,
And so at that point, I was like, I'm spending a lot of money to apply to medical schools, and none of my doctors ever even ask me what I eat.
right, right.
So I, at that point, was like, I'm not going to medical school, but I have to do something. So why don't I get my graduate degree in nutrition until I figure out what that's going to be? And then I fell in love with it and ended up becoming a registered dietitian. It kind of just fell in my lap. I was like, there's something I'm passionate about. That's what I'll spend my money to learn.
Wow, that's perfect. You mentioned about being allergic to dairy. My son was allergic to dairy, and the way I figured it out, because I did not see a registered dietitian, I didn't know, none of my son's doctors could figure it out. What would happen is he was very congested all of the time. It was just like I figured he was just getting colds from being going to school, as a little second grader. And one of the teachers actually was the one who said, why don't you start eliminating some of the foods that he actually eats and see if there's a change? And sure enough, when I began to eliminate things from his diet, like eggs, like who knew, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, some of the milks and things like that, he actually became better. And I figured it out, but I never had the option, or no one ever suggested go to a dietitian or go to even an allergist or something. I had no idea.
Right. And so, I mean, I truly believe in modern medicine. Don't get
Mm,
me wrong. I think that there is definitely a place for it. But I think that, taking a step back and looking at the whole person, the whole picture, there's a place for that as well. So I actually work side by side with a lot of doctors. I get a lot of referrals from doctors because our doctors typically get one course in nutrition in their entire degree.
oh, really? Wow.
So we don't spend a whole lot of time educating our doctors on nutrition, which makes sense when they're not recommending nutrition habits then, right?
Right.
So sometimes you'll go to the doctor and they'll say like, oh, I think you should lose weight. Well, that's great. Can you help more than that? Or, hey, your blood sugar is high. Well, that's great. But, it's not necessarily everybody thinks like, oh, just take away carbs. Well, that's not really the answer. There's lots of other things we can do. And so I work very closely with some of the doctors in the area. I send people to them. They refer people to me, which is quite nice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a business. Now, before I go on, because you have your own practice, your own business, how did you decide that that's what I'm going to do as opposed to going to work for somebody else?
So I did the time working in hospitals. I actually worked as a travel dietitian, so kind of
Mhm.
like travel nursing. I was a
Yeah.
travel dietitian
Hmm.
right up until the pandemic when I ended up in Georgia. I worked in the ICU, like that was my location for 8 months of the pandemic. And I was like, okay, I've had about enough of this very stressful situation just because I saw the same people all day, every day.
Right.
So then I left that, kind of decided not to travel anymore. I took an online job as an online coach where I helped women lose weight. And I'm also a personal trainer. So I help them with their fitness as well.
Wow. Okay.
And I realized after a few years of that, that this type of education should be available to everybody, not just those individuals who can afford $500+ a month to have a coach.
Right.
I just feel like it should be something that everybody has access to, and it's not limited to that higher income group.
Right.
So that's when I started to look at the opportunity of accepting insurance in my practice and opening for myself, because honestly, most people come in and they have anything from like a $0 to $40 copay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Good.
that's much more affordable for individuals.
Exactly, exactly. Because I would think that, in my own journey, I would think sometimes dietitian, nutrition, that kind of stuff goes to the wayside, especially if you can't afford it. It's like the last thing that people are really not so much thinking about, but it takes seriously, right? Because you got like the dollar menu, right? And from McDonald's, and a lot of low income families go to the dollar menu, although it's not the healthiest thing in the world to do.
Right, exactly. It's one of those things that I think people tend to not necessarily put last purposely,
Mhm.
but it isn't the top priority at that time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, what makes your practice different from other practices?
So, as opposed to going to a larger facility, I'm currently working alone here. I am in the process of hiring more dietitians to work with me. But as opposed to doing, a 60-minute initial appointment, 30-minute follow-ups, I do dedicate a lot more time to my patients
Mm,
because I take a whole person approach. So, we sit down and we don't just talk about food. Because yes, food is important, but also your stress levels, your sleep, how much time you have, what your work hours are, all of that plays a role. And I feel
yeah.
like that's what's missing in our typical like hospital setting
Right. Right.
is
Okay.
you can go in and meet with somebody at our bigger hospital systems, but you get 30
Mhm.
minutes. You talk about like, how did you do this month? How was your portion of potatoes? And
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
really the majority of it, right? It's a 100% food focused. And I like to take the whole person approach.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, we might have talked. I know we talked a little bit about insurance, but what other methods of payments can people actually do with you to pay for
So I
this?
do have out of pocket options. So if you don't have insurance or you have an insurance that like doesn't support nutrition counseling, you can pay out of pocket. That's an option. So like cash, check, card, all the things.
Hmm.
Um, but I also do online coaching. So I have my in-person business. I can also
Hmm.
do telehealth. So just like you would telehealth with your doctor, that's an option. And I can accept insurance for that. But then I have individuals who maybe want a little bit more of that like hands-on week to week check-ins with me.
Right.
Individuals who know like, hey, I'm going to need more accountability. And I'm like, okay, great. If you know yourself, that's great. So I have out of pocket options for that as well, where maybe we talk every 2 weeks or every week. And for that, it's completely out of pocket. It's just nutrition counseling or personal training. I do both virtually.
Mm. Okay.
Um, but that can actually be done with individuals who are out of state. So
Hmm.
that's kind of nice also.
That is very nice.
Yeah.
Would you do virtual, especially personal training? How do you do personal training virtually? I've never seen that.
So, a big problem with personal training as far as the business side of things goes is there's only so many hours in a day,
Right.
right? And so I have an app that I use for all of my clients where I go in and I customize everything to you. If you said, hey, I want to work out from home and I only have 30 minutes a day and I have 4 dumbbells and a medicine ball, I'd say, all right, let's figure it out. And I create customized programs for you. So that is all done via an app where we have communication. Like if you have a question or something, you can send it in, let me know, and I can send it back to you, like respond to you. I did recently actually hire a personal trainer to work under me and kind of cover some of those things, because if I'm with a patient and you're texting me from the gym going, this machine's taken, what do I do now? I was like, I want to be able to respond instantly. So
Uh-huh.
I did just hire somebody who has actually been my client for several years. So she knows the way I work. She knows all the answers. She is a certified personal trainer. So she's kind of spearheading that right now,
Mhm.
but everything's custom. So it could be, hey, I go to Planet Fitness. It could be, hey, work out from home, whatever you need, we kind of customize it to you.
That's awesome. And you want to know something? We mentioned the medicine ball and the whatever. I actually have one of those balls, those balance balls, and kettlebells at my job or at the office. And I need to hire you, because what I'm right now doing is I'm telling Alexa to remind me to do kettleballs, remind me to do. So I think we all realize, I think a lot of us do realize that we sit still at our desks and we need some exercise. And, so that's awesome that you can do that, for a person and put that program together for them.
Yeah, and what I really like about the app that I use is that there's a video for everything. So if I said to you like, "Hey, do this exercise," you might sit there and be like, "What does that mean?" But there's
Mhm.
a video to go along with it, so you quite literally can't forget. You can't mistake it. And we do offer like form consultations. So if you're like, "Hey, I'm not really feeling this where I'm supposed to, can you check my form?" You
Mm.
just send a video right through the app, and we can actually check that for you as well.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Yeah, because a lot of times in a personal training situation, or not even personal, at a gym, when you have the trainers walk around, I used to be used to people actually stopping me and, adjusting me a little bit so that I get more out of the workout. So that's a great option.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, do you have to give up foods when you start seeing a dietitian?
So I am a firm believer that the only reason you should give up a food is if it makes you sick or you don't like it.
Okay.
Those are really the only two restrictions we have, right? If it's going to make you ill or you don't enjoy that food, we give them up.
Okay.
Otherwise, we find a way to make it work. So a lot of the times I get clients who have worked with somebody else or they've heard from their doctor, like, oh, just give up carbs. Oh, don't eat this. Don't eat that. Don't eat bananas is a big one. Don't eat bananas. They're too high in sugar. I'm like, listen, bananas are like nature's candy.
Yeah.
You can certainly eat bananas. We can certainly eat carbs. But there are smarter ways to do that. So whether it be portion control, whether it be optimizing the timing of your meals or the timing of your food in relationship to your workouts or your sleep schedule, there is a lot of science that goes on there, but we can
Yeah.
certainly make those foods fit.
Awesome. I need to step out of this, and I have to ask you this question because I bought this because a senior citizen came to me and told me about it, and that's monk fruit. So I went to Kmart and I got myself some monk fruit and I sprinkle it in my tea. Is that really a good alternative to sugar?
Yes.
It
Um,
is.
it actually is, yes. That's what I use every day in my like morning breakfast smoothie to sweeten it up a little bit. It's
Uh-huh.
certainly a good option. The stevia extract is also a good option.
Okay.
But as far as our like sugar substitutes, those are going to be the two best options.
That is great. I've been drinking tea without sugar for the longest time. And my coffee, I don't take sugar in it either. But there is one tea that I like sugar, and I like to make like a little chai latte. And I can't imagine giving that up. So I started with the monk fruit, but I never really did any, like when she just told me that, and I never asked a real doctor, dietitian, or nutritionist, anybody, if that really works. So how long do people typically see a dietitian?
So like I said, I've had clients who have stuck around for several years. And some of them are from like my prior job, I would see people for like 2 to 3 years at a time.
Okay.
Check-ins every week. Like they just stuck around, super happy, whether like your season of life changes
Hmm.
and then your nutrition needs change as well. I've seen many people go from like, dating, out drinking, having a good time to like getting into a relationship and having babies. Like
Mm,
those are very different life stages.
right.
And so it could be that you come in and you have like 4 appointments and you feel really comfortable and then you don't need to come back for a while.
Gotcha.
That's very, very possible. But other people stay long term. And we just, I don't need to see you once a month. Maybe we do it every other month.
Mm,
Maybe we do it every third month. And just having that accountability and that check-in of how are we doing? Are we still on track with your goals? Have your goals changed? Most insurance companies, either, like I said, it's like unlimited visits, or they'll say you get so many hours a year.
mm,
So, I always say like put an appointment in the beginning of the year so that you have that check-in. Let's, make sure we're still prioritizing our health.
right.
And then maybe we meet halfway through the year and we can just check in again.
Right, right. That's wonderful. Now, how is nutrition related to other areas in our lives?
So I find that a lot of what I do is actually helping people kind of get their whole life together. And I hate to say that because it sounds kind of corny.
Hmm.
But when it comes to eating healthy, we can't really eat healthy if we are super crunched for time. Because if we're super crunched for time, what happens? We're going to stop, we're going to pick something up, we're going to be on the go. I've had a lot of clients come in and tell me I've actually helped them save money because they are no longer stopping and picking up food all the time.
Right.
But that comes from a place of, prioritizing your health, prioritizing, where are the minutes going to come from, where we can prep food, where we pack our lunch, where we go to the gym, where we, kind of get things in line. And it's
Yeah.
like time optimization is a big part of that. And so it's easy to say like, eat better. That's great. But how do we put that into practice?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, if they start eating healthier, they start working out. If they start working out, they want to eat healthier. And it just is a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to find time for all of that. And so all of that takes a role. I've had people who prioritize their health
Hmm.
and have gotten to a place where they're like, my job is not conducive to a healthy stress level, and they've quit their jobs. And I
Hmm.
don't promote that, but it is really like it's a happy moment for me to see people really putting their health first.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I do agree with you. There are studies shown that, especially being successful, you must, first of all, you need a routine. You know what I mean? You need a routine, and you do need to put some emphasis on your health, because we need to do more, right? So especially when you're in business for yourself, we need to find more hours in the day. And I think, what you're just talking about, food and also, eating properly and exercising going hand in hand allows us to I don't know, it allows us to actually have more energy and, do what we need to do during the day without taking a bunch of medicines and shots of this and that kind of thing.
Right. And it's the same idea where you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right.
If we pour all of us into our jobs and our businesses, and I can't tell you how many people come in here and I'm like, what time do you take lunch? And they're like, oh, I don't take my lunch. What do you mean we don't take a lunch? I was like, you don't get paid for that time. You might as well take the lunch. But if you can't pour from an empty cup, we have to start with taking care of ourselves.
Right.
And if that means meeting with somebody for 30 minutes once a month to say, hey, are we still on track with that? I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of people who come in and they're like, I have this afternoon slump. It's like, I think we've all experienced that, like 2 p.m. We're just like, I could take a nap right now. If
Yeah.
we optimize our nutrition, that stops happening.
Mm,
And
amazing.
we're feeling better and we're more productive and we can get more accomplished in our days.
Yeah, yeah. And you said 2 o'clock. I think my slump is around 3.
Yep.
That's when you start heading for the coffee machine again,
Yes,
or whatever.
exactly.
And
A lot
yeah,
of people struggle with that.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. That is real. All right. So, what advice would you give to people who are nervous about seeing a dietitian for the first time?
So I think the biggest thing, especially in a practice like mine, where it's a private practice, not a big corporation, is that we are partners in this. I am not ever going to tell you like you have to do X, Y, Z. I tell people I make recommendations. You get to make decisions and we can go back and forth. If you sit here and say to me like that's not going to work, okay, that's not going to work. Let's come up with another plan. And
Okay.
it's all very customized to you. We go back and forth. It's a partnership. So there's nothing to be worried about. There's no judgment by any means.
Okay.
Um, I personally didn't come from the healthiest background prior to my nutrition education. And so there is no way to there is no judgment ever.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Brooke, tell us how we can get in contact with you. I don't even think we announced the name of your company. Tell us the name of your company. How do we find you?
Sure. So the name of the business is Catalyst Nutrition and Training. I have an office in person on Pierce Street in Kingston.
Hmm.
So what you can do is you can go to our website. It's just www.catalystnutritionandtraining.com. You can read a whole lot more about our beliefs and values and everything there. And there's a contact form you can submit right through there and kind of just tell us what insurance you have, what you're looking for, and we can give you a call back. Or you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. It's all under Catalyst Nutrition and Training.
That's perfect. And we'll have those in the show notes, so that everybody can actually, find the information if they were driving during this podcast and didn't write it down. Check the
Correct.
show notes. All
Correct.
right.
And I do a newsletter once a month. So there's a contact form for that on the website as well. And that will take you to my blog and all of the things. So you can get just like I put one out today, it goes out on the first of every month, but it has a free workout, some recipes, a blog post, it's got all kinds of free goodies in there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, Brooke. We really do appreciate you educating us on this dietitian slash nutrition slash exercise and training. We definitely get a lot out of it. I appreciate your time. And you know, I always say a quote from Grant Cardone, because I'm a Grant Cardone licensee and a 10X business coach. Grant says that success is your duty, your obligation, and your responsibility. So thank you so much.
Yes,
And
thank you so much for having me.
yeah, we're gonna have a 10X day. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, bye.
This episode is sponsored by Day One Accounting, because you got to start somewhere, so start with Day One. And by Grant Cardone's 10X Certified Business Coach program. Let's 10X your revenue by 30 to 40% in 90 days.